champions Chelsea are now 10 points adrift of leaders Man United, and Birmingham jump out of the drop zone with their 1-0 over West Ham, who slipped to the bottom. In Spain, Cristiano Ronaldo fired Real Madrid to 4-1 win over Real Sociedad to cut the gap on leaders Barca to 7 points. But it was Kaká who got his name on the score sheet first as he continues his return from injury. Then Ronaldo finally broke his 4-game goal-scoring drought. This powerful left footer putting Real 2 up. His second came from a well-directed header to draw him level in La Liga goal-scoring charts with Barca star striker Lionel Messi. Despite Sociedad's pulling a goal back, the home side closed out the game with Togolese striker Emmanuel Adebayor scoring his first goal for Real since joining on loan from Man City. Final score 4-1. The late game in Spain saw Valencia stay in the hunt for the third automatic Champions League spot after beating Hercules 2-0. Goals from Odores Zubeldia and then Tino Costa sealed the points for the home side. The win puts them just 1 point behind Villarreal in third. Italian league leaders AC Milan have failed to take maximum points for a second consecutive game. Their 1-1 draw at Genoa allowed Napoli to cut the gap at the top to 3 points. Brazil's Alexander Pato put Milan ahead on the half-hour mark. But mid-table Genoa were level just before the break. Antonio Flores, who's just signed on loan from Udinese, with the equalizer. Final score 1-0. Elsewhere in Italy, Lazio missed a chance to pressure Milan with a 1-0 draw with Chievo. Palermo are hot on the heels of the top four following a thrilling 4-2 win at struggling Lecce. Brescia took the honours in the relegation battle with bottom side Bari, while Catania fall ever closer to the drop zone after losing at Bologna. To tennis, where Australian Open champion Kim Clijsters has secured Belgium's place in the semi-finals of the Fed Cup. Belgium were already 2-love up against the USA going into Sunday's reverse singles and needed just the one win for unsaleable lead. But Bethany Matic-Sands wasn't going to give the three-time US champion an easy ride, taking the first set on a tiebreak. Clijsters, though, picked up the pace to close out the match 6-7, 6-2, 6-1. Belgium will play the Czech Republic in the semis, while Italy will play Russia. That's it for me, Folly.
Thank you very much, Sana. Of course, we'll be back in just a few minutes with the latest on the continuing protests in Egypt, where, again, thousands have gathered in Tahrir Square today. This as President Hosni Mubarak has held his first full cabinet meeting since the unrest began. We're back after the short break on Al Jazeera. Do stay with us.
From local traders to international finance, it's commerce that makes the world go round. For global companies and developing markets, communication is the currency, and information is the most valuable commodity. Counting the cost at this time on Al Jazeera.
We are peaceful people. The Egyptian people will be the ones who will make the change.
We are mobilizing tomorrow a mass protest from Tahrir Square.
If we decided to give in now, they will hunt us one by one.
I'm Folie Batibo with Al Jazeera's continuing coverage of the crisis in Egypt. Our top stories. Thousands of protesters are still on the streets of Cairo and other Egyptian cities calling for the end of Hosni Mubarak's reign. But Egyptian television has shown the president meeting members of his administration. His new cabinet has held its first full meeting since the beginning of the uprising. In other news, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has appeared in court in Britain. He's fighting an attempt to extradite him to Sweden, where he's facing charges of allegations of sexual assault. Defense lawyers will argue that Assange should not be extradited because he has not been charged with any crime. A hearing into the killing of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri has begun in the Netherlands. Highly sensitive charges including terrorism and conspiracy are expected to be revealed. The indictment has sparked a political crisis in Lebanon where Hezbollah members are expected to be implicated. Well, back to the situation in Egypt again, where thousands have gathered in Tahrir Square once again. And Al Jazeera has a team of correspondents on the ground covering these events. Of course, we'll talk to them in just a few minutes. First, the latest developments from Alan Fisher.
It was a tribute to a dead journalist, shot doing his job. Ahmed Mahmoud was filming fights between protesters and police on his mobile phone. He was shot in the head. The coffin is empty. His body has yet to be returned to his family. But the emotion and the pain is raw and real.
I feel like I lost a great thing. I lost my partner, I lost my daughter's father, and she needs him.
Cairo is slowly cranking back up to normal. President Hosni Mubarak has held the first full meeting of his new cabinet, sending a clear message he's still in charge. On the streets, shops are opening, banks are functioning, traffic is moving.
The past 7-8 days affected the entire country. The banks were closed, the post offices were not open either. When they reopened yesterday, everything was back to normal, but there are still some queues.
The protest in Liberation Square is now moving into its third week. The people here are getting more organised. The numbers stay the same. The space they're allowed to occupy is getting smaller. Slowly, the army is squeezing the area around the square.
Those who are thinking that we will get tired of sitting in Tahrir Square, we tell them that we are not leaving. Mubarak should leave Cairo.
For the anti-government camp, the worry is the air is being sucked out of these protests, momentum is being lost. The tanks and soldiers are a reminder of what has gone on over the past days and weeks, and a reminder that this crisis is also far from over. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera.
Well, Al Jazeera's Hoda Hamid joins us now live from Cairo. Hoda, what's the scene in Tahrir Square today? Are people able to get in and out easily?
Yes, from what I can see, people are able to come in, and actually unexpectedly so, because today was not any specific day of march or any sort of commemoration. The square is quite full at this time of the day, and I can see across the bridge more people trying to get into the square.
It's day 14 now, of course, Hoda, of these anti-government demonstrations. Many people in the country have been complaining about the economic conditions brought about by these protests, late salaries, rising food prices. How's the crisis affecting everyday life in Egypt? And what do the people who are not in the square think of these ongoing protests?
Well, I think the best word to describe that is that there are divisions. On one side, people do agree with the messages coming out of Tahrir Square, but on the other side, Egypt is a country where about 40% of the population lives on daily wages. They cannot afford staying out of a job for much longer. There's also the rest of the population, except obviously the ruling elite, that lives on that at the moment is living on their savings. Some have received their salaries, others have not. So certainly a lot of preoccupations, because for them, those who are outside of Liberation Square, there is a reality, and that reality means feeding your children, trying to send your children back to school, trying to get back to work, and that reality is still not there. So there's certainly a worry among them, but I think that a lot of people do agree with the message coming out of Liberation Square, even though many would not agree on the ways that on the way this is taking such a long time. And there's also the big question whether President Mubarak is going to leave or not. And at the moment, there is no indication that he's planning to leave anytime soon.
And certainly there's a will, it seems, from the government, Hoda, to return to normality, to return to what it was. We saw the first full cabinet meeting headed by Mubarak earlier today, the first full cabinet meeting since the unrest began. What does this mean, in your opinion, as far as the government wants this to go?
Well, that is a message that it says, we are still here, we are running the government is still in place, and we are looking at everything. We are trying to bring normality back to the country, and obviously the fact that the president is presiding it is a message also to the people of Egypt that he's still there and he's still overlooking state affairs. Now, on the other side, there's a message coming out of here, and that message is maybe a more populist message. That message is people are also still continuing coming into Liberation Square, maybe unexpected.